Welcome to Young Voices Changing the Currents. I'm your host, Haley Platt. My goal is to create a safe space that inspires students to share, inspire, and shape their futures together. Special thank you to our sponsors, Siembra Mobile. Thank you for listening today and subscribe if you haven't already. Let's dive right in. Hi, welcome to Young Voices Changing the Currents podcast. I'm your host, Haley Platt. Today, we are continuing a conversation I had started about imposter syndrome with Dr. Joseph Brown. So he is joining me today. If you haven't watched part one, go back and watch. Today, we're talking about advice for students and universities who are struggling with imposter syndrome. So welcome back, and let's keep it going.
Hey, everybody.
So we ended off on kind of talking about how to build community and what it will look like for students going forward. So let's continue that and try to narrow down, whether you're a university or a student, how we can make students feel included and alter these spaces to make sure that every student has the opportunity to succeed.
Yeah. So first, I guess I'd like to talk about generally about sort of the college side. What do colleges what can colleges do? Um, and one of the first things that they can do for students is be very explicit about the sets of skills that they're looking to see students develop. Because the more that they can be explicit about that and provide the resources so students can do what they need to do to build those skills, I think the less imposter syndrome that students experience because they know, well, no, here's what I need to be successful.
Right.
And here is my assessment on these, and here are the resources and things that I can do to shape that. So a lot of imposter syndrome, belonging uncertainty, uh, is experienced because of the ambiguity of the college experience and our not knowing, well, what am I supposed to be doing? What am I supposed to be thinking about? And am I doing enough of whatever it is that I should be doing? So
Yeah.
the more that colleges can be explicit about that, I think the more successful students will be.
And that ties right into your, sorry to interrupt, but it ties back into your growth mindset that you were talking about of
Yes.
having clear and concise goals that you can strive for. I think it does help change our mindset of just kind of this ambiguous goal of being an engineer or being a social psychologist. You're not really sure what that means, but having clear cut pathways to that, I think is really helpful.
Well, I love what you said because, right, yeah, I want to be an engineer, right? Okay, well, and that could be, well, what does it mean to be an engineer? And who is the kind of person that is typically an engineer? And do I resemble that? But, well, wait a minute, but if I'm doing well in the engineering classes and I've got an internship where I'm working on a project and they seem to be happy with what I'm doing on the project, and, well, you're
Exactly.
an engineer, right? If you're
Yeah.
doing the things that engineers do, you are an engineer, right? So yeah, take out the ambiguity. And the other thing is, we talked about finding community, finding people, not just other undergrads, but staff and faculty that you can connect with. And those staff and faculty are really important because what they give you is a resource. You can check in with them and ask, you know, here's what I'm experiencing. Here's what I'm doing. Am I doing okay? Am I doing what I should be doing? Uh, if you were where I am now, what would you suggest I do differently? Someone that you trust who can tell you, you know what, you're doing just fine.
Yeah.
You're doing just fine. Or who said, you know what, you're struggling with this. Here's how I can help you, right? Someone that you trust is really important because, if you experience imposter syndrome, the person who tells you not to worry about is really important because if it's not someone you trust, what you're going to do is dismiss what they have to say, right?
Mhm.
But if it's someone that you trust and they tell you that you're doing okay, that can make all the difference in the world. By the way, that can be frightening when you're experiencing belonging uncertainty, stereotype threat, imposter, that cluster of things that can lead you to want to isolate yourself
Mhm.
and not reach out to people. But in those situations, it's really important to reach out to someone you can trust and let them know what you're feeling and ask their advice. Ask them, what do they think about what's going on with you?
Yeah, I think it's really important that you said that because I want to acknowledge for students who may be watching, I think there are moments where you may be sitting in class and you can say to your friend, this is my favorite professor I've ever had, but I will not go up and talk to them because maybe they're intimidating. Or I think there's truly something to be said about maybe the professor who is the most intimidating to you has the most to offer you. I've had so many professors that I go in their class and I'm laser focused serious because I want to impress them and I want to show them that I care about being here as much as they do. Um,
Mm.
and I actually one time went up to my teacher after my class and she was a very sweet woman. She was my management professor and I was a finance major, so it was just kind of an enjoyable class for me. And
Wow.
I went up to her and I was like, I would love to talk to you more. I'm really struggling with my career path. She kind of looked at me and she's like, what, are you a management major? And I was like, no, but I really liked she worked at BCG. She just had a lot of variety. So I was saying, I really want to talk to you more. I have no idea what I want to do. She's like, well, I don't know how much help I can be because first off, I would never be a finance major. And it made me, I started laughing because I was like, you know what? I appreciate your honesty. And I understand that, it's definitely not for everyone. And I kind of sat back in that moment and I said, you know what? I don't really know why I'm a finance major either. I think I just did it because I thought it was a great path and it was a good structural thing that I could do a lot with.
Yeah.
But honestly, if I probably would have picked again, I probably would have done management marketing.
Wow.
Luckily the business school at SU, you enter into it. So everyone is taking the same classes. So you're really the only difference between me and someone who's a different major is about 6 classes of core
Oh,
finance.
okay.
The rest are kind of just general. Everyone's getting a little bit of everything. So I think that was a very interesting thing for her to say because I was like, well, I'm still kind of like I can do that if I want to. But it was just this, wiser older professor who hadn't always been a professor, but she wanted to pass on her knowledge, and I really appreciated her bluntness.
Boy, that's awesome. Can I ask you, so what led you to take that step to approach her?
Yeah, so I think I was intimidated, but after so many moments of her being vulnerable with students, I found to really appreciate her extra step. And I think
Yeah.
a big thing was, it was a management class, so a lot of it was focused on, it was an upper division, so I mean, it was serious, but we had a lot of case studies and group project work, and she gave students the opportunity to do a lot of small group work and like really build trust within the class. But something that stuck out to me that, when you're kind of in it, you're like, oh, this is kind of silly. But you look back and you appreciate it was she would have a mindfulness moment at the beginning of each class,
Oh,
whether
wow.
it was 2 minutes, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, whatever based on the lesson plan was. She would come in and she would say, you're not going to laugh at me and you can choose to participate if you want to, but I'm giving you this moment to stop and reflect with yourself and just breathe or just have a moment where you're not looking at your screen or schoolwork and just have a moment to decompress. And I thought it had so much value. It was on Tuesdays and Thursdays in the afternoon, and on Thursday afternoon I'd come in so bleh, and so everyone was like, "This is universal nap time," is when this class was. So everyone was kind of like, "Blah, we don't want to be here." But then you would come in and she would have this mindfulness moment for you. And I think that encouraged me to take the extra step because she wasn't just trying to get all these case studies done and wasn't all business. She actually cared about our well-being. And I knew that,
Wow.
obviously everyone has
Wow.
anxieties about approaching teachers, whether you're the top of your class or you're the bottom, it happens to everyone. But just kind of taking that extra step and approaching her. And I think I actually emailed her beforehand and I was like, do you have a minute after class? I'd love to talk to you. So that I knew I had to go do it because she was
If
looking
you
for me.
had taken this step at the beginning of class, that conveyed a caring for students. And
Yeah,
he also mentioned that she had been vulnerable herself in class, so that as intimidating as she was, it still created an opening so
right.
that you were willing to take the chance to go in and approach her.
She would make jokes. She would connect the case studies to an experience that she maybe had. I mentioned how honest she was about her experience, and I think we were in the middle of a group project, and she said, I had someone email me about their group member never being here. Well, trust me, I've had my share of group members who won't show up. She was very comical and very blunt about it. And I really appreciated it because I didn't like teachers who were unwilling to recognize like this person may be putting in all the work for your group project, and I'm not going to acknowledge that that's happening because it
Yeah,
doesn't matter whether you're at the Ivy level or you're at the community college level. There are going to be the high performers in a group project, and there's going to be
absolutely.
slackers, and it happens in
Absolutely.
the workforce too.
Yeah.
So I think, I mean, not with us, but I think there's a lot of moments where you can doubt yourself, but having those moments where a person, if you give a little, you'll get a little.
No, so yeah, I love what that professor did. There are lots of professors that think, no, it's only about conveying the material, and you don't need to know about me. I don't need to connect with you on an emotional level. But I don't think they appreciate how, if students can see your humanity, they can make a connection with you, and you all can be from very different backgrounds, but you don't know what the benefits might be of that little sense of connection. One of the things that I recommend to students is that for all of their professors and their TAs, professors look up their professors, see what research, where did they go to school? If they've got a PhD, what did they do their PhD in? The TAs find out, hey, are you a graduate student in what area? And then go introduce yourself so that they can make that connection. But this is a human endeavor. Education is, in which real connections with people actually matter. And what that teacher did made a difference for you. But I think students can be proactive about that, about introducing themselves to their professors, so that they get, and even going to see the professor during office hours and saying, you know what, I'm thinking about majoring in this. And you know what? I read that you did your research on such and such, and I wonder if you could tell me a little bit more about it.
Yeah. And I
Right?
think that comes with age as well. I think
Yeah.
when I actually had Business 70 is if you go to Santa Clara, it's the intro class that all business students have to take.
Mm.
It's kind of just a broad overview of everything. And I actually ended up having my Business 70 teacher as my senior capstone teacher. And I would be sitting in the class and I would have flashbacks to when we were online on a Zoom during COVID in his class.
Oh,
And,
wow.
and
Yeah.
now I'm sitting in person at building up everything that I've learned so far. And it was just like a very nice, like
Mm.
final moment to understand just how far we've come education wise. And it was so funny because it also brings up, the age. He would have a strict no late policy. And if
Mm.
you were late to class, he would do attendance. And if you weren't called on the roll call, you'd have to go up to him after class and tell him why you were late. So it made you be like, oh, God, okay, like I gotta go. Like I need to be there early because I'm gonna have to go explain to him why I wasn't there. And he was like, I don't care about your excuse. Like as long as you're telling me the truth. And so I remember I was late for one day and I was like, I'm so sorry. He's like, you're fine. I know you're here every day. Like it happens. We're only human. But I think it was that like almost that fear of like, you guys are adults. You're gonna be in the workforce soon. You have to show up to work soon. Like you might as well start practicing now. And then, of course, he would start class in a different manner. Like, I don't think it has to be a mindfulness manner, but he would say, "Oh, this is the book, like book recommendation of the week. If you're interested in economics or if you're interested in this topic, like this was a good book." And he'd kind of just leave it on the front. And I think that was powerful
Mm.
itself as well because it's meeting people where they are. And I
Yes.
wouldn't expect him to do the same thing as another teacher, but he made
Yeah.
it his own, like what he was comfortable with. And that his humanness was put forth through a book recommendation.
Yeah.
Whereas another teacher may just come into class early and ask people where they got their coffee from. Like it really is not
Yeah, there are lots of
objective to
different
the person.
ways to do it, and people will do it in different ways, but it works and it builds the kind of connection that can really help students. Yeah, no, I love that. I love that. Um, but I
So
think this is what we're coming to that um, the the solution to a lot of these phenomena are real social connections and both sides doing what they can do to nurture those connections, right? That's what really matters. Um,
yeah. So I think as we wrap up, any like last pieces of advice for students? I know we've talked about, kind of putting yourself out there, but um, I'd rather have you say what worked for you because I'm more of an extrovert. So I think going up to and talking to people is a bit easier for me. But maybe from an introvert's point of view, what are some ways that you were able to approach people that you wanted to connect with?
Boy, so just to say how nervous I would get talking with faculty. I might have like 5 questions that I want to ask a faculty member. Then I'd go see them in their office and forget 3 of the questions that I wanted to ask. That's how nervous I was, right? So someone told me this little trick so that I would use after that. I would write down my questions and I would go to see a professor and say, Professor, boy, I have a lot I want to talk with you about, but you know what? Uh, I have these questions I wanted to make sure I ask you, and I wrote them down. Would you mind if I brought them out? But just having that crutch, that piece of paper with those questions, something for me to hold in my shaking hands, it made all the difference for me. You know, I was able to ask those questions, and yeah, I had something that I could depend on. After a while, I got more comfortable,
Hmm.
but having that really made a difference for me. So I guess that's what I would suggest, that if you are intimidated about reaching out to faculty, that's understandable. So help yourself. Think about the questions that you want to ask and just let them know, hey, I so look forward to meeting with you that I wrote down the questions I want to ask you. Would
Yeah.
you mind if I brought those out?
Yeah, I think that's great. And I think it's something that is only human that we naturally feel nervous when we're talking to someone we don't know. It still happens to me, but I think my parting advice would be I never leave a situation meeting someone feeling badly about it. I never walk away saying, "Oh, I wish I never said something." I always walk away and I said, "Oh, I'm so glad. I'm so glad I said hello," or "I'm so glad
Mm,
I said something." And it could even be, "Hey, I think I've seen you around the library. Are you a student here?" It's the first step of just you could just say hello if you're not sure what to say. But just
yeah.
reminding students that you're not alone in that, and it is scary, but practice will get you there over time.
Ooh, boy, I love that. And one last thing that relates to what part of what you're saying. There's this research by a Stanford sociologist, Mark Granovetter, The Power of Weak Ties. And it's this research on the power of connections with people who aren't in your intimate, close network, people that are on the outskirts, people who don't know as well, like that faculty member you don't know so well that you go to see. And what the research shows is that a lot of our opportunities to grow, jobs, other things, tend to come not from the people that are in your close, intimate network. They come from people with whom you have weak ties that you're just getting to know. So there are real opportunities in those connections. And so finding ways for us, however shy we are, to start to reach out and to make those connections yields a lot of rewards.
Yeah, I think that's great. Thank you so much for being on today. I think we've had a really great conversation.
Enjoyed the conversation.
Yes. Thank you so much. I definitely look forward to having you on again. We have lots to talk about. We could go on, but we'll spare the viewers for today.
Okay.
Thank you to everyone for being here today. I really appreciate giving us your time. Thank you again to Dr. Brown. Please tune in to past episodes. This is the fourth one in this season. We talked a little bit about his experience as a first-gen student, as the oldest in his family, and how he's gotten to this point in his career. And of course, this past episode, we've talked about imposter syndrome, kind of going through that theory, and in this final part, giving advice to students on how they can better immerse themselves in their communities. So really appreciate everyone being here today. Tune in for our other parts to hear more from Dr. Brown. And thank you so much. Have a good day.